This is always one of my favorite shows of the preseason. Welcome in. I'm Pete Mundo. We're Heartland College Sports. We cover the Big 12, and we appreciate you being here as a part of it. Hit that thumbs up on YouTube, subscribe, and on the podcast. If you could drop that 5-star rating and review, we appreciate it. So I want to give you the dream Big 12 football road trip for the upcoming 2024 college football season. And before I do that, I have to give you the roadmap. I have to give you the rules for those of you who are new to the show, and there are thousands of you pouring in each and every week getting ready for the upcoming Big 12 season. We've got 4 new teams, 4 new fan bases. This year, we had 4 new last year. So in case you're new, I have been doing this for almost 10 years, where I give you my hypothetical dream Big 12 football road trip. And the rules I set is not just picking the best game every week. That would be easy. I can only go to a Big 12 stadium once during the season. Now, in the old days, and by that I mean 3 years ago, when the Big 12 only had 10 teams, what I would do is I would make it so I had to go to every stadium once. I can't do that with a 16-team league. There's obviously not enough games. But I'm keeping it with the guardrails of I cannot go to a stadium more than once. So if I think there's a great game in week 13 that I want to go to at a certain team stadium, I can't go to that team in week 2, even if they have the best game on the schedule. So you see how this is going. This is a puzzle that you have to put together. You can't just pick the best game every week. So I'm prefacing all this so that way you know as the season rolls along and I give you this hypothetical Big 12 dream road trip, you understand the guardrails I put in place, which makes it a lot more fun. If I just pick the best game, we'd all have the same road trip, right? But that's not what I do here. By the way, I want to apologize for the last couple of shows. I know there were some technical audio issues that presented themselves in those shows. I had some bad connection. I knew about it. I had a backup microphone and hookup set up, but it just wasn't good. So we're back on track. Audio should be sounding good. If you're having any issues, just drop a note to me. Email me, PeteMundo@heartlandcollegesports.com. Drop a comment on YouTube, whatever it might be. But just know that I'm aware of it. We took care of it, and we should be all set. So thank you guys for working through those couple of shows. That's what the preseason's all about, right? Working out a couple of kinks and making sure we've got the best connection for the upcoming season. So with that being said, let's roll out the dream Big 12 football road trip for the upcoming football season. In week 1, I'm starting off the season, and I'm not actually doing this, by the way, because I've got 3 little kids at home. But if I could, remember, this is a dream Big 12 football road trip. Week 1, I'm starting in Morgantown, West Virginia, Penn State. Arguably the biggest game of the non-conference for the entire Big 12. Morgantown is going to be absolutely lit. If you have not been to Morgantown for a game, if your team's going to be there this year, make the trip, make the effort. I promise you, it will be well worth your time, and you will have an incredible atmosphere. Never mind coming off of 9 wins last year, the hype around this team, which does have a bit of a chip on its shoulder. So I am starting off in Morgantown week 1, which means I can't go back, but I'm willing to risk it, because this game is going to be unbelievable. It may be one of the great atmospheres in all of college football this season. Week 1, big noon kickoff, and then after that, I'm going to High Street. All right, that's the plan. And if you're a West Virginia fan, you've had a good time or two on High Street, as have I. Going back to, it's been a while, but last time I was in Morgantown, West Virginia Baylor, December of 2016, final game of the regular season. After the game, I saw cornerback Rasul Douglas at Buffalo Wild Wings. He I don't know if he's still in the NFL, but he ended up getting drafted by the Eagles. I think he was like a 4th or 5th rounder, and he had a decent early career. I don't know where he is now, but anyway, that's my Morgantown story. And the other parts of my Morgantown story I can't tell you because I may not recall the whole thing. I'll leave it at that. Week 2, I'm going to Cincinnati, where they will take on Pittsburgh. So week 2 has a lot of really good games, but a lot of the Big 12 teams are on the road. Iowa State is at Iowa. Texas Tech is at Washington State. Houston is at Oklahoma. some other games I might look at, but they're not at Big 12 locations. So I've got to go to a Big 12 stadium. The reality is I probably am not going to be at Cincinnati as the season progresses. So I might as well go now, short road trip from Morgantown, and take on Cincinnati Pitt, some old Big East ties there, kind of regional-ish rivalry. And I have not been to Cincinnati. I hear the home atmosphere is great. And this feels like a good time to do it when there's still some hype around the team. It's early in the season. The weather's good. Team's feeling good about itself. So that feels like a good week 2 game to go to in the Big 12. Cincinnati at Pitt, because a lot of the better Big 12 games, the Big 12 team is on the road. For week 3, we're going down to Fort Worth, Texas to kick off Big 12 play. TCU hosting UCF. First official game of league play. And I'll tell you what, this game is very underrated. If you look at UCF and TCU, UCF believes it's not only a dark horse in the Big 12, but a legit contender in the Big 12. And they have every right to feel that way based on the talent that Gus Malzahn has piled up. He's got his quarterback in KJ Jefferson, so he's feeling good about himself, as he should. TCU is potentially going to be one of those dark horses that we look up in late October, and they're in the mix, and we're like, gosh, we didn't see this coming. And with that being said, I'm like, this game can go a long way for both teams. If UCF loses this game, suddenly you're going to say, well, is UCF anywhere close to the team we thought they could be? Whoever loses this game is not going to feel good about itself moving forward in Big 12 play. And same thing can be said about the winner. The winner solidifies itself as suddenly a team where you say, okay, we're going to watch them. Not they're a contender, not we're putting them in a Big 12 title game, but the winner versus the loser of this game early in the Big 12 season could go a long way to determining each of these two teams' future successes this year. And that's what makes it a very underrated and compelling game. So I'm going UCF at TCU in week 3. Now to week 4. Week 4 is one of the games of the year. Stillwater, Oklahoma, Oklahoma State versus Utah. Could it be a Big 12 championship preview game? It could be. The winner's in the driver's seat. The loser is suddenly like, gosh dang it, I got to make up a lot of ground to get myself back in the picture, even though it's one game. But it's one enormous game. And in many ways, it's the cream of the crop in the old Big 12 versus the cream of the crop in the new Big 12. Of the 8 new Big 12 schools going back to last year, Utah has by far the best track record in recent memory. Of the 8 old Big 12 schools, Oklahoma State has by far the best track record in recent memory. Kansas State may argue that, and I understand, but you take the bulk of the last 15, 20 years, and I would say that Oklahoma State has had more sustained success than Kansas State. So you've got the best of the old 8 versus the best of the new 8. It's early in the year, and it will go a long way to determine who ends up getting into the Big 12 championship game. So that's a no-brainer. That's when you put together this hypothetical dream Big 12 football road trip, and I put my rules in that say I cannot go to a stadium more than once. If there are games I know I want to be at, you've got to just make sure you plug them in there and then not pick some other game at that stadium somewhere else on the schedule. That's the key here. So Oklahoma State, Utah, week 4 in Stillwater. Week 5, I'm following Oklahoma State, and I'm going up to Manhattan, where Kansas State is hosting Oklahoma State in another game between two teams that feel like they are the ones who can punch that ticket to a college football playoff, the first year of the expanded playoff, a classic Big 12 matchup. Listen, the reality is when you've got 16 teams and half the conference is more or less new, for those of us who are longtime Big 12 fans, when you get one of these K-State, Oklahoma States, it just feels like the Big 12. It's not a knock on the new 8. It's just a reality of the situation. It feels like the Big 12, right? So that's what this is going forward. This feels like a Big 12 game. It will help determine who plays for a Big 12 championship. And it's a no-brainer for week 5, Kansas State, Oklahoma State. Week 6, I thought about breaking the rules and going to a non-Big 12 stadium for UCF at Florida, but I got to play by my own rules here. Every game's got to be at a Big 12 stadium. But, man, after West Virginia Pitt, I am so intrigued by UCF at Florida. But I can't do it because the game is at UF. So I'm going to a new Big 12 stadium. Arizona State is hosting Kansas that weekend. And I've not been to Tempe. It's early enough in the season where Arizona State might be somewhat interesting. Kansas is a team that will find itself, if things break right for them, in contention for the Big 12 title. And it's a great excuse to go down to that stadium and see what else is going on, what it's like in Tempe, and have just a grand old time. So there's a lot there to like. There's a lot there to be intrigued by. And all in all, it's one of those games I'm looking at and saying to myself, this is going to be a lot of fun. So that's one that, I thought to myself, do I do something else? Do I go somewhere else? What makes the most amount of sense? But in the end, that feels like the one that's going to be a really good time and is going to be a lot of fun as well. So that's the plan for week 6. Now, where do you go from there? What do you do from there? What's the move in week 7? This got very tricky for me in week 7. Very, very tricky because there's games that, teams I want to see, but I want to see them later in the season. What's the best move? What's the best play? How does all this work out going forward? All right. So I'm going to make a little change here in the schedule. I don't necessarily want to do it, but I more or less have to do it. There's no other move here. I have to make the change as I see fit. Do I think it's the best game? No, I don't. But it's one of those things that you have to do based on how I'm putting together this schedule. And in week 7, what we're going to do is we are going to go to Colorado, and we're going to see an old Big 12 North matchup in week 7. Kansas State, Colorado, beautiful time of year to be in Boulder, Saturday, October 12th. And there we go. That's going to be fantastic. It's got the old Big 12 North feel to it. First trip to Boulder, perfect time to be there in mid-October. And that's going to be just a fantastic atmosphere early in the Big 12 season. Colorado's still going to have some juice. Maybe they're exceeding expectations. Maybe they're right in the mix for a Big 12 title. Who the heck knows? But that's going to be one of those games that you sit there and you say to yourself, well, if it's sneaky good, I can't wait for it. I can't. It's going to be a heck of a lot of fun going forward. All right, so that's week 7, Colorado and Kansas State. Now, week 8. Week 8, oh, man. I'm going out to Provo, Utah. BYU, Oklahoma State on a Friday night, okay? That is going to be fantastic. Provo on a Friday night looks amazing. I know some folks who were at some of the night games last year who swear by it. They say it's one of the great atmospheres that you're ever going to experience. So with that, sign me up for BYU, Oklahoma State on a Friday night in Provo. I would not miss that one at all. Is it the best game? Once again, that's not what this is about. That's not how I do it. It's not just about the best game. It's about going to every or as many Big 12 stadiums as I can go to, and I cannot go to a stadium more than once. So that's what makes this tricky, and that's why you've got to be careful in terms of how you pick these games and how you go about selecting where you want to be and where you're going to go. All right. So that's why that matters. That's why you got to look at the schedule and say, I can't necessarily just go to the best game every week. Can't do it. So that was week 8. So now we go to week 9. And remember, this is where it gets interesting. Week 9, where am I going week 9? Week 9, I am going to go to Waco, Texas. And we are going to do Baylor versus Oklahoma State in week 9. Now, Baylor's a team that is picked near the bottom of the Big 12 standings, right? So Baylor's a team that a lot of people don't think are going to win a lot this season. But I've got a sneaky suspicion Baylor's going to be in more games than people realize. I'm not sitting here saying they're going to win all these games. I'm just saying they're going to be in these games. And when you look historically, Oklahoma State and Baylor play close games. They have met 42 times, and Oklahoma State's won 23, Baylor's won 19. And dating back to 2012, so over the last decade, no team has a win streak longer than 3. Baylor won 3, 2014, 2015, 2016, late in the Art Briles era. But since then, they basically swap wins, and they play close games. They mostly play games within 10 points. 4 of the last 6 games have been decided by 11 points or less between these two teams. 11 points last year, 5 points 2 years ago, 10 points 3 years ago, 2018, 4-point game. I mean, they play very close, very high scoring oftentimes, and very thrilling games between Baylor and Oklahoma State historically. So I'm going down to Waco. I think it could be a sneaky good game, and we'll see Baylor take on Oklahoma State in Week 9. Week 10 of the Big 12 football season, we are going to Central Florida, where UCF is taking on Arizona in what could be one of those games as we flip the calendar to November in Week 10. That could be basically an elimination game from the Big 12 championship race. You have 2 of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 taking on each other in Central Florida. Great time of year to get down there, the weather, play some golf, have a good time, and then, yes, watch some outstanding football. But that could be, as we enter November, which will be elimination month in the Big 12, that could be one of those elimination games in this Big 12 football season. So that would be my Week 10 game in this dream Big 12 football road trip. Moving to Week 11. You know the answer, right? If you know the Big 12 football schedule, the answer is the Holy War. Not missing the Holy War. Utah, BYU, no way, no how, not a chance. First one, obviously, as a Big 12 member for both of these schools, one of the all-time great rivalries in all of college sports. And that is what I was saving my trip to Utah for, the Holy War. Is it the best game Utah's got at home in terms of, team competitiveness? Probably not, but that's not the point. That's not the point. I got to go to the Holy War. I got to check that game out. No ifs, ands, or buts. So that's Week 11. Week 12. Here we go to Week 12. This is where it gets interesting because, I've been to a lot of the places based on my rules for this dream Big 12 football road trip where I cannot go to a Big 12 stadium more than once. So I've been to K-State. I've been to West Virginia, been to BYU, been to Colorado. I don't want to go to Iowa State yet. I'll explain why. They're hosting Cincinnati that weekend. So that leaves one game. Friday night matchup, Houston at Arizona. Now, do I think Houston's going to be in the Big 12 race by Friday, November 15th? I don't. But this has all the makings of like a trap game in some respects, where Arizona may be in the thick of the Big 12 race. They're coming off a bye week, and maybe they're a little slow coming out of the gates at home. Houston's looking for a big upset. Willie Fritz's first year, kind of one of those first-year head coaches rebuilding a program, sneaky game on the road, and you pick off Arizona, or you get a game down to the wire. I could see that being the case in this Houston-Arizona game. And I've not been to Arizona yet on this hypothetical road trip. So Arizona versus Houston on a Friday night is the play there on November 15th. That's Week 12. Let me just make a note of that. And then Week 13, we are going up to Lawrence, Kansas. Kansas versus Colorado. It gets harder as the season goes on because of the rules I have in place. So the home teams in Week 13 are many cities that I've already been to on this road trip. So now I'm looking at it and I'm saying, here's a Kansas team that can very much be in the Big 12 title hunt. Who knows what's going on with Colorado? It could be really good, really bad, somewhere in between. But you get a Big 12 game that could very well have title implications on the line, and the game's at Arrowhead Stadium. And as someone who's based here in the Kansas City area, and by the way, goes to a lot of Chiefs games, I am fascinated by the idea of Arrowhead Stadium hosting KU football. So just that alone is worth putting on the bucket list for Big 12 games this year. If you can get your team, or if you're a Kansas fan, but if you're a team who is playing at Kansas and it's at Arrowhead Stadium because KU is doing all these renovations this year, they're playing a handful of their home games at Arrowhead and then a handful of their games at the Sporting KC MLS Stadium. Get to Arrowhead, man. That is going to be a blast. So put that one on your bucket list and make sure you check it out. But that will be my Week 13 game. And then, last but not least, Week 14, final week of the regular season. Farmageddon, baby. Let's go. I was saving the trip to Ames for Farmageddon in Week 14. I am not missing Farmageddon. Everybody should go to a Farmageddon at some point. But there's no way I'm missing Farmageddon, especially when it's entirely possible Iowa State and Kansas State are in the hunt for a trip to Arlington for a Big 12 championship. Maybe it's both. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's one or the other. But you could make the case for any four of those scenarios, that both teams are in the mix, just Iowa State's in the mix, just Kansas State's in the mix, or neither team is in the mix. But even if neither team is in the mix, it's freaking Farmageddon. Last year, you got the snowball, where Abu Sama's running all over the field, 90-yard touchdowns in a foot of snow. I mean, you just don't miss this game, especially when it's the final week of the regular season and it has Big 12, potentially Big 12 title implications. So that's the plan there. That's my hypothetical dream Big 12 football road trip here at Heartland College Sports. I've been putting that together for a very long time, several years now if you're new to the show, and we appreciate you being here on Heartland College Sports. Before we continue, would you take a second out and leave a quick thumbs up on the YouTube video? Subscribe to the channel as well before the season gets started. And if you're on the podcast, you guys have been here forever. This show is a podcast before I did any video. And we have built this up to be the best Big 12 podcast out there. But I still need your help. We don't ask you for anything. All I would ask of you is if you would drop a 5-star on this podcast on iTunes or Spotify, and leaving a review goes a long way as well. It really helps in the algorithms of Apple and Spotify and YouTube and all these different places. So I'd be grateful if you'd do that. The season's coming up. We keep adding viewers and listeners because of you, not because of some massive marketing campaign, but just organically because of you. So if you could take 30 seconds out and do that while you're listening, I would greatly appreciate you guys doing that. I'm Pete Mundo. We're HeartlandCollegeSports.com. We cover the Big 12 Conference, and we are grateful for you and your time. Now, got to talk about Deion Sanders here. Hit subscribe, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate you doing that. But when you look at Deion Sanders desperately needs the season to get here, and Deion Sanders desperately needs to start winning football games. Why? Well, if you missed it, Deion Sanders had about a 25-minute press conference on Friday, and it got attention for all the wrong reasons. And as tough as I've been on Deion Sanders, and I don't think I've been tough, I just think I've been fairly questioning whether or not this Deion Sanders experiment is going to work. I'm going to defend Deion at a time when a lot of people are jumping ship. So Deion had this moment, and if you haven't seen any of the clips, some of them are up on our X page at Heartland_CS. Just search Heartland College Sports there. Find us on Instagram as well. You can find a lot of content on our Instagram page. We did add a TikTok, I will add. So we got TikTok too if you want to find us there. But it's a very contentious press conference between Deion Sanders and local media in the Denver Boulder area. And you got Jason Whitlock, coming out there saying that Deion Sanders is softer than baby poop. And by the way, someone who's got 3 kids, baby poop can be pretty hard. Okay. I've got 2 still, one sleeps in diapers. One is 5 months old and is still permanently in diapers. So softer than baby poop can be hit or miss. And I don't think Whitlock has any kids, so I'm not sure he's the guy to talk about baby poop anyway. But I get what he's going for there. He's saying that Deion's soft. And a lot of people watch that press conference and are like, Deion Sanders is so soft. He's such a wimp. Well, I question Deion Sanders' ability to have a lot of success with this blueprint of 40 in, 40 out via the portal. But I'm not freaking out over that press conference like some people are. Some people are looking for every reason to beat up Deion. And I'm not. I don't know what the relationship is between Deion and some of these local reporters, but it's okay. I really don't think it's a big deal. I think it's actually okay for a coach to stand up for himself and for his team. And every coach has a different way of doing that. And if you're offended by that, then maybe you're the one who's soft. Do you want to say Deion was being disrespectful at times? Okay, fine. But without having the entire backstory, what if he felt disrespect on his end? Right? We talked and we had a staff down there at Big 12 Media Days, and they all raved about Deion, his accessibility, his mood, how he talked to the media, how he answered every question, how he did most of it with a smile on his face. So I'm not going to rag on Deion just because everybody else has taken the opportunity to rag on Deion. Media, for the most part, and I know some of you are going to say, look in the mirror, but my point is broad. Media in general is softer than most people in sports. There is a self-righteousness to many in media, and I say this as somebody who not just does this with Heartland College Sports, but also is somebody who hosts a radio show in Kansas City, has done, news, has done sports in many different parts of the country. Media in general has a level of entitlement that is only surpassed maybe by sports. And Deion knows that. Deion knows the game. Deion's not a coach who just got the call up from the FCS and now he's sitting there in the big time and he's in over his head. It's freaking Deion Sanders, okay? The guy knows what he's doing. He's been around the media his literally entire life since his college days at Florida State. Now, does he rub some people the wrong way? Sure. Does he get more attention than his team deserves based on its talent level? Yes, but that comes with the territory when you're Deion Sanders. It's not his fault that people want to cover him, and he's right now the biggest star in college football, bar none. That's not Deion's fault. The media made him into that, and they're following him because it's good for their business. So if you're a fan, you can't say Deion gets too much attention and that's Deion's fault. If Deion gets too much attention, it's the media's fault that covers him. And the media's covering him so much because guess what? They get views, they get clicks, they get reads off of Deion Sanders. So everybody's to blame in many ways except for Deion, who's just being Deion. I don't know if Colorado's going to be any good. If you were to say to me, Pete, is it more likely Colorado's irrelevant in November or in the hunt for the Big 12 title in November? I would say it's more likely that they're irrelevant. They could be in contention, but it's more likely to me that they're irrelevant. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to use the press conference from Friday to bag on Deion Sanders. I don't think that's fair based on what I've watched in that press conference, and you should watch as well, and some of it is on our X page. Follow us there at Heartland College Sports. And I'm going to do it based on what happens on the field, not because Deion might have been a little rude to a reporter. Okay, reporters need to get some thicker skins as well. And they don't always ask the best questions anyway. Now, many people bring up this clip where Deion's ragging on a guy from CBS, the local CBS affiliate. And Deion doesn't, he takes it out on the CBS reporter, this local CBS reporter, because I guess CBS Sports had a rankings that showed or said Deion was the second worst coach in the Big 12. And it is true that Deion's got to understand the local CBS affiliate has nothing to do with people that write for CBS Sports. That is a fair criticism. But either way, you know what? Deion's clearly keeping the receipts. And that can be good for a coach, and that can be good for a program to keep the receipts. If you're a Colorado fan, I wouldn't even think twice about this. All that matters is whether or not he wins, not whether he is nice to reporters. Although it's good to have the media on your side, the blow-ups can actually help you. If you go back to Mike Gundy's I'm a Man, I'm 40, remember that back in 2007? Mike Gundy had that still infamous rant, "I'm a man, I'm 40," going off on Jenny Carlson from the Oklahoma. That was very early in Mike Gundy's tenure. He was in his third season, and it was September of his third season as head coach at Oklahoma State. And at that point, Oklahoma State had gone 4-7 and 7-6. And they were just starting his third season. They had just beaten Texas Tech in that game, and then Gundy went off in September of 2007. Well, it was a blow up, and it was easy there to say, Mike Gundy doesn't respect media. How could you act like that? He was in part sending a message to his guys. He was sending a message to his program that I got your back. I'm going to defend you. If these guys come after me, if they come after this program, I'm going to stand up for you. I'm going to have your back. And if that's what Deion is doing here, then guess what? There is some 4D chess happening that can benefit him and benefit his team during the season and for years to come at Colorado. So I'm not freaking out over it. And frankly, Colorado fans shouldn't. And if you are, you're kind of buying into what the media wants to build. And that is Deion Sanders as the villain. And while I'm not convinced Deion's going to win big at Colorado, I'm not going to sit here and just say he's the villain. I'm Pete Mundo. We're HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Hit that thumbs up below the video. We appreciate you doing that. Subscribe to the channel, and we'll be talking to you soon. If you're on the podcast, hit the 5-star. We would so appreciate you doing that. Leave a review as well. I share those on the Instagram page. You can follow us there at Heartland College Sports, because I'm always thankful. I want to give shout outs to you guys when you leave us a nice little review, because I know it takes a minute of your time to do it, but it does make a big difference as this show continues to grow. Share it with a couple of buddies, and we're going to be off to the races here at Heartland College Sports before long. I'm still tinkering with times to drop the podcast on Sundays. Do I do it early afternoon on Sundays? Do I do it late at night on Sundays? I like the afternoon on Sundays, but you can convince me otherwise. Leave us that comment. Email me anytime, PeteMundo@HeartlandCollegeSports.com. Have a great day. We are just a couple of weeks away from the Big 12 season being here, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the show. That way you never miss an episode. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Go Big 12.